Great. We're now going to go into a panel discussion, and we have 4 panelists who I believe are just joining us live here. The session is designed to last around 15 minutes, and I've got 4 kind of pre-prepared questions that we're going to put out to our panel, and then audience questions. If you want to send in as we go, we'll try and block out 5 minutes at the end to cover any audience questions. So the theme of our panel discussion is, let me just find it. I've lost my notes. Enhancing the retailer-supplier relationship for e-commerce success. So quite a broad theme there for us. And in terms of our panelists that we've got on the line here, you can see we've got Glenn Ticehurst, who's joining us from Waitrose. Glenn, I believe you are the partner and online category manager, optimization and digital development leader for Waitrose. Long job title there. Welcome.
No, right, yeah.
And we've got Alistair Welsby also joining us, who's the customer business manager for e-commerce at Molson Coors. Welcome, Alistair.
Thank you.
We've also got Vishal Krishna joining us, who's the head of e-commerce and D2C at Nestle Purina. So welcome, Vishal. And we've also got Jack Heaton joining us from Ocado, who is the head of merchandising, I believe just recently joined Ocado.
Oh yeah, joined a few months ago.
Brilliant. Welcome, everyone. If I could ask that you just go on mute when you're not talking. We're getting a bit of feedback on the previous sessions, but I'm sure that won't be a problem. I can see you're all on mute now. We're going to kick off with the first question, which is quite broad, and then we'll evolve from there and go through some more questions as the conversations develop. So the first question is, what are the first things brands should focus on when establishing a relationship with a retailer's online merchandising team? So we'd love your perspective on that. Over to the floor.
I guess I can go from a brand perspective, which is, the first thing we need to do is understand what the capabilities are. So specifically with the online merchandising team, what they can and can't activate within the platform, what are some of the things they're looking to do, and how they match up with the brand strengths that we're bringing. So for example, if you're launching MPD or particular promotions, for instance, then what can we activate and how far can we push it? And it's really important to understand from a retailer perspective and from the merchandising teams how they can activate it and how we can apply more synergies towards that.
Shall I kick in from a retailer's perspective? I think there's probably a few big things very similar to Vishal in terms of I think a good understanding across the teams on kind of what the processes, guidelines and capability are. I think really helps focusing on how we can most effectively drive an objective rather than spending too much time on the actual kind of delivery of it. And I think just starting out with some really clear objectives and getting the online merchandising teams involved early in the conversations really helps. As an online merchandising sort of lead, I think we're super close to the customers and how they shop on the site. So we're best positioned to help brands come up with the best solutions and work together to come up with those solutions across the teams.
I'd probably home in on a very specific piece there. Actually, I think for both parties, in that openness is super critical to success, and a real shared vision of where the business and the business goals are moving forward, and where that sits with the brand and their strategies moving forward, and where the points of commonality are. I think it's really hard for a supplier to drive performance in an area where the retailer isn't intending to go, and vice versa. And I think until you have like a really honest, and I mean really honest, and it can be heated, but I think that's really good to get to that shared place, and that's the only way that you'll be able to set objectives, deliver performance that you're both happy with.
Yeah, I think I'd just like to add, I think from a branded point of view, what I think is important from a supplier is that we've got our house in order as well. So we're making sure that our existing imagery, product titles, we're turning up as we should. And I think coming to merchandising teams, offering to help and support, often a lot of branded companies have got
a wealth of resources in category, insights, and I think always come with that mindset that we're trying to make the merchandising team's life easier as well.
Okay, great. Really useful insights. It's early engagement, merchandising teams joining up objectives as much as possible, being very clear call outs. For Jack and Glenn, I guess as a supplier side, often it can be difficult to, attract time from some of the retailers like yourselves. You're super busy. Any kind of additional advice on how to get over that barrier, things that, objectives that are really important to you that would make a supplier stand out in terms of giving them time for initiatives, etc.?
I think a big one I suspect is that the primary stakeholder for most suppliers is not going to be into their e-commerce team. It will be going into a slightly more generous function, probably buyers who are not going to be e-com masters themselves. So I think my advice would be working through your primary point of contact, understand where e-com is going. And building on Al's point, if I'm trying to drive my category forward online, Jack have loads of merchandisers in his team, and they want to drive sales. If I've got a number of suppliers coming to me and one of them says, this is what you're chasing, I already know that, and I'm coming prepared for that. Here are the things that are within the toolkits of my business to help make your job easier. 100%, you're going to be able to attract a merchandiser's time.
Yeah, I think that's the real key, is a good understanding of the kind of aligned strategies and objectives across the businesses, and absolutely where there's opportunity for us both to get value. There will be time made to support those sorts of things. I think having that understanding and coming with that understanding is a really key starting point.
Okay, great, very helpful. Linked to that second question, or probably third question now. As we've gone through the pandemic, obviously the supplier relationship has changed in terms of how we interact virtually and how we manage that. We touched on this a bit in earlier sessions, but from both perspectives, what's been your kind of approach and experience of how that relationship has needed to evolve, and any kind of tips?
I'm happy to go this one. I think something Glenn touched on just before was having that openness and honesty. I think, because this is a unprecedented situation that, no one has experienced before, and everyone is going through it. It's just about being open on what, realistic expectations are. So for example, for a retailer, it might be just to get some product on the shelf, or make sure that their platforms are working correctly, whatever. And some other activations may not be their key priority at that point in time. So it's about just listening and understanding where they're at, and making sure you work, hand in hand with them to help out where the priorities are. I guess it's important from a brand perspective to make sure that those boxes are ticked as well. But I think at the end of the day, we're all dealing with human beings, and it's just important to understand kind of where the pressure points are for everyone, and just working together on it, really.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo that as well. I think as well, just being realistic on time pressures as well, and the priorities change. Often it can be more supply-led rather than looking for things in the future, and just be realistic what a customer can effectively do in the time pressures that we have at the moment.
I think one of the things that I've found most fascinating is the speed with which things have had to change. And I think it's, can everybody adapt to that change quickly? Because customers absolutely will. Customers will change their behaviors on a dime, regardless of the level of technology you have on your platform to target against that. For example, Waitrose has gone like loads and loads of orders. So our goals immediately have to change from trying to acquire customers to driving spend. And that change of goal has to happen quickly. So can your business approach also adjust to that change? Because again, going back to the earlier point about making life easier, if you can gain an understanding of what that might look like, and then how your products, can you get new formats quickly? Same day is coming through. Can you get into that? Can you help retailers into those spaces where they need to go? That's the sort of things that certainly we felt our side, and suppliers that have been able to help with that change the best, the ones that we've bent into the most.
I think I think it's a point that's been touched on a couple of times, but I think it has led to more prioritization, really focusing on the big drivers and the big things. So I think coming with a really clear list of priorities has probably been more important than ever in terms of supporting a remote way of working and our ability to react to things quite quickly that have changed very rapidly as well.
Okay, so very similar key themes. Priorities have shifted, I think, for both suppliers and retailers, and making sure we're critically clear on what those priorities now are, so we go after them fast, versus some of the old priorities, which, in the new world just aren't so relevant. Next question, which is quite big. What does the new normal look like for you guys individually, whether it's supplier side or retailer side? And how can retailers and brands work together to address, I guess, what the future looks like on some kind of key big strategic projects? Any ideas?
I think the most exciting thing, sorry, you first, but
Okay. I guess it's difficult to understand what the new normal is, but what we have seen, and it's quite clear, and I think everyone in this conference will understand that, is the migration of business to online, simply because people cannot. Simply because people cannot. Go into store, for example, or find the products that they need. So it's been really challenging. But what we have seen is the significant penetration online, and that I believe will stick. I can't imagine a situation where people will back off that shopping habit, because that does. It's basically. It's almost like a massive event in the world that causes people to change their behavior, which was what would have happened probably in 5 years, but it's happened in the space of 6 months. And that much is for sure, that the new normal does require us to invest more resource time and actually research on how people shop and what their shopping behavior is. Because what we thought was the case for online specifically about 9 months ago, in terms of why people shop online, what the path to purchase is significantly different to what it is now. What it is now is some people have gone to it because of necessity, and other people have gone to it because that is the quickest way they can do it. But we need to really deeply understand that to make sure that we're capturing the customers at the right place and really capturing that shopper behavior. But it's hard to say what the new normal is, but we do know it's significantly accelerated versus 9 months ago.
So you mentioned what's new in our world. So the most exciting thing, I think, is the way that the maturity of our market has exploded forward. That's crazy fun, and that brings with it loads of pressures in terms of the business. But one of the great things about it is how it opens the eyes to everyone as to how technology might deliver things in the future. And all of us, regardless of which retailer you are, when you've got all that growth opportunity, it unlocks loads of doors for further investment in technology. So we're looking at loads of different types of machine learning and AI and how we can scale that to deliver performance that otherwise we couldn't. So I think 2 years ago, when I was kind of on a similar panel here, myself and the head of merchandising at Ocado at the same time, we both said test and learn, test and learn. I think that I probably wouldn't have wanted to say test and learn had we not just had the year we had, because we've matured quite a bit, but now the world's changed again. So I think in a way we've kind of gone back to knowing there's loads of new things to learn and figure out and how we go about doing that. So now I would go back to what I said 4 years ago and say test and learn. Come to us with ideas, come to us with investment, help support to get them away, and let's figure out these new things and the new customer habits.
Sorry, Jack.
No, you go.
Sure, after you, Jack. I was just going to reiterate, just from a supply perspective, I think this is a really exciting time because the whole business is now engaged and sees the potential in online and e-commerce, which has always been there, but not to this sort of level of focus. And I think one of the key things is just to make sure from a supplier that you're aligned internally, but also there's clear expectations about what you can and can't deliver. I always think the best plans, and that applies to e-commerce plans, are built up over a period of time. And it's almost baby steps to a certain extent, being really clear and realistic, but going on sort of a journey together. So coming to a retailer with a plan, an achievable plan, and then actually actioning that plan as well, but just be realistic internally about what we can deliver and just to manage the expectations straight away.
I think I was just going to add a little bit on top of Glenn. So I think not only have we seen a massive shift to online, but a very different demographic within that as well. And I think that presents some really interesting opportunities and some challenges. Some categories in particular that do particularly well in retail and in a very retail focused environment. Huge opportunity for us online now with these customers coming online and how we grow those categories, but in ways that we probably haven't been as focused on in the online grocery sector. So I think there's a lot to learn about this kind of new demographic of customers coming through as well. And I think sharing kind of insights across teams and brands on what we're seeing there is only going to help us accelerate those plans and kind of get those things right faster.
Muted, Katie.
On mute, classic. It's a matter of time before someone did it. It links very nicely, Jack, onto our final question. So you talk about shopper demographic shifting. One of the key themes that we're all going to be potentially looking towards is how do we make sure we retain all of the new acquired shoppers. Some of them will stick for sure. They'll have fallen in love with this new shopping experience, but some are going to be considering going back in store. What kind of ways do you think brands and suppliers and retailers can partner together to create holistic plans to get those kind of maybe less loyal shoppers to stick to the online platform?
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, I think we definitely see there's already a big opportunity on personalization and targeting, but I think you can see that as an even bigger step change now with an even more varied demographic and set of customers across multiple categories, particularly in the grocery sector. I mean, on Ocado, we've got 60,000 products. Helping the right customers get to the right products within that is huge, and we've had a real influx of different types of customers shopping for different types of things. So I think from our perspective, getting that insights and working with brands on those types of customers who have transferred over from retail and the kind of the key drivers for them previously shopping in retail, and how we build that out in a personalized and targeted way is really important to us over the next sort of 12 months.
I think
I think from a
I think from my point of view, I think personalization, which Jack touched on as well, is really key, and the user experience, because for those people who have migrated from an in-store environment, they come from a shopping experience that they're really familiar with, so they know how to navigate the aisles, they can find products wherever they're used to finding them. If they've now migrated to buying online, I think the key is to make that experience as seamless as possible for them. I use an analogy of an airport where there could be anything up to 10,000 doors, but the signage and kind of everything in the airport will lead you to the correct door in order for you to be able to get out. And I think the same applies to like an online environment where you use a taxonomy or the right shelves to really guide, and some banner activation to really guide the shoppers into the right area for them to get in and out as quickly as possible, but also allow them the opportunity to browse, which is what I guess they're used to doing in a store environment. Online's typically been an area where it's speed and convenience. You go in, you get what you need, and you get out. But these people are used to browsing. So how do we activate some of that to give them the experience that they're used to getting in store?
I'm not very well. Hyped up on paper rub and stuff like that, so I couldn't make the ROI discussion before this one. But I think that the biggest mistake anyone who isn't a pure play can make is to only think about online. Even for the huge growth and how super busy I am, we've still got loads of shops that sell stuff, and I think the biggest thing is that we might be taking 100,000 orders more than we might every week before, but we've got millions of people on our site. And actually, the biggest prize is actually how are you selling through the retailer that's delivering in that customer channel, that omni-channel way. Making sure that when engaging with someone who's got bricks and clicks, how are you looking at the whole picture? Because success for us, if we just push everyone online and then our shops fall over, we're not successful as a business, and other retailers will be the same. So how are your models adjusting to deliver in that new world? For both of those situations, my approach.
Yeah, that's a great point, Gwen. I fully agree with that. It's taking this omni-channel view at all times. But I have to admit, a tip that I found that has worked exceptionally well at Molson Coors is taking as many people in the business through different retailers, media plans and media guidelines, just so they get an understanding of what's available and how people shop online. And that way you then have your brand marketing teams, your shopper teams and your category teams thinking through that lens at the start. And it just helps demystify it as well. I think probably one of the challenges that we do have is a lot of people internally understand how in-store works, but e-commerce is a little bit more unclear, and they're not as familiar with using search, favourites, taxonomy, etc. So the more we can do as an industry to demystify, I actually think the better for everybody.
Brilliant. Okay, great. Thank you so much, all of you, for some great discussions. We've gone over by 6 minutes, so thank you. I think it was worth it just to get that final part of the conversation. Some really good points on, it's not just about online, and we've got stores to consider as well here.